Hello everybody, today I'm going to be going over my Centipede Jaguar basic attack build that I'm theorycrafting here. I think this one's going to be pretty cool. So let me go ahead and hop on into the basic combo. So first off, when it comes to our spirit choice, we're going Eagle, we're going Centipede. This is because we have Harmony. This makes it to where instead of only our primary spirit making all of our skills that type, it also makes our secondary spirit make all of our skills that type. So this is going to be a 150% damage increase for our basic attack builds, because there will be Centipede and Eagle skills in addition. So we choose Eagle because this gives us Storm Feathers, and then when we evade, it's going to shoot them all out, and it's going to make targets vulnerable. So this is a really good way to get access to vulnerability. You can alternatively also use Gorilla if you would like. If you would just rather have the barrier and you don't care so much about making things vulnerable, right? Secondary, we want Centipede. The reason for this is we get to heal, but that's not really the main reason. The reason why we're doing Centipede is because if you go into the skill tree and you come down here, you get to get 15% increased damage, 30% versus healthy, and then you get to get just another 30% increased damage to crowd-controlled enemies and gain 150% increased crowd-controlled durations. So that's just really solid in terms of being able to get an extra 60% damage against healthy enemies, or 45% increased damage against just everything else is really just a super solid reason, I feel, to take the Centipede. Now granted, don't get me wrong, Eagle has a really cool critical strike chance one, but the bonus resets, and then Jaguar being able to get a increased maximum ferocity, and then also being able to get a stack of ferocity whenever you kill an enemy or boss is also pretty cool. But yeah. So after that, we will be using the Sepinzek. So the Sepinzek is your basic skills deal 200% increased damage, and they always use the third attack. And every third cast unleashes triple strikes. Now this is especially cool because it gives you ranks to follow through. What follow through does is increases your basic skill damage by 30%, and it doubles the bonus on third attacks. Well, we're always doing third attacks on Sepinzek. On the live server, this was like 6 to 10 ranks. Or sorry, no, it was like 6 to 7 ranks, meaning you can get it up to like 10 to 12 ranks potentially, meaning this is like a 180% damage increase. Plus the 200%, this is just an astronomically high percent damage weapon for your basic builds. So that's super duper sweet. So we are using that in combination with, we have Thrash is going to be our main one. Just because it's going to do an AoE every single time we use it, so it's going to make it really easy to hit things. And then you have this accelerated Thrash, so Thrash continues to unleash its third attack if cast again within 1.5 seconds. So I am kind of curious to see how this is going to interact. It might actually just be better to go Sharp Thrash, just to get a stack of ferocity every single time you cast Thrash, which, if you don't know what ferocity does, it gives you an extra 20%, an extra 4% attack speed per stack. So that's pretty solid. Then we have Withering Fist with, hold on a second here. Yeah, so then we have Withering Fist with Enhanced Withering Fist and then Accelerated. So enemies poisoned by Withering Fist are going to deal 20% less damage to you. So it's just a defensive buff here. And then we have Thunder Spike. Now I'm not expecting that we have to put this on the bar because of Accelerated. It says when you evade, you attack with Thunder Spike along the way. So if when we evade that happens, that means we're automatically going to have another way to make things vulnerable. And then we're also going to be able to proc our aspect of Combined Strikes, which is why we have 3 different basics. So each different basic skill increases all of our damage by 25%. So it's a 75% damage increase right there. If we do have to end up putting it on the bar, I might just drop Scourge or something like that, because this is pretty useful, because since we also always do the third attack when we cast it, it also reduces our evade cooldown by 5 seconds. So we can be really fast here, like really, really fast, okay? Moving right along, we have things like Pain Gorger's Aspect, 200% increased damage, and then all we have to do is cast a non-basic skill, so something like the Hunter, or Counterattack, or Scourge, and then cast a basic skill, and it'll cause an explosion to everything, which is pretty nice. Well, not really an explosion, but the damage will echo to all marked enemies for 200% increased damage. And then we have Aspect of the Moonrise, 120% increased basic skill damage, 20% increased attack speed, and 15% extra move speed. Is just super nice. Aspect of adaptability, 80% increased damage to basic skills while we're over 50% max resource, which we are always at. And then aspect of the combined strikes, 75% increased damage since we are using 3 different basic skills. So that's just a lot of damage increases here, like a lot of damage. And this is without even, we haven't even gotten into Paragon because Paragon isn't out yet. So this is looking pretty spicy already. Now we are using menacing aspects. So Scourge continuously affect enemies around you for 3 to 6 seconds. I do this because the reason we take Scourge is each time you hit an enemy with Scourge, you gain 1% increased damage versus crowd-controlled enemies up to 50%. So this is going to help us get that up. Then I use Aspect of Might just for another 20% damage reduction. You know, just easy, chill, super cool. And then the Soar Evade Boots. So our Soar is now going to be our Evade, which gives us another way to make things vulnerable, because whenever you land, you make the targets vulnerable for 5 seconds. So again, another good access to vulnerable to make sure we're keeping things up nice and vulnerable to do even more damage. And then that's going to be it for the aspects. I'm not going to do the secondary stats because, I mean, that's going to depend on how they change things like armor, which are going to be changing. There's going to be a lot of overhaul, so I'm really just showing you guys the overall legendary build and then the skill build. And they are going to change the numbers of some of this stuff. So I suspect all this stuff will stay the same, but they might retune the numbers, but that's fine. So, you know, like follow through might get reduced or something like that, but that's totally cool if they do that, because I mean, honestly, that's like way overtuned, I think. But I also don't know what they're expecting to do, because from the sounds of it, they're about to make everything more broken here coming up in Season 5. All right, so getting into the skill builds here. So coming down here, we are also using Ravager. So every single time you activate this for the next 3 seconds, all of your attacks are going to unleash additional strikes, dealing 84% damage. Now, I'm thinking what this might do is cause your basic attack to do the additional strike. So I don't know if the damage is going to be considered Ravager damage or if the damage is going to be considered Thrash damage. That's going to be kind of the question on how good this ends up being. But it also passively stockpiles any healing you receive up to 40 stacks, and then while active, Ravager will spend stacks to strike elite enemies up to an additional 4 times. So I'm kind of hoping that it does count as Thrash damage, because if it does, it's just giving us just even more DPS, which is going to be super awesome. We're going to go Mirage. This gives us 100% increased dodge chance during evade, but we also get 15% crit chance for 3 seconds after we come out. 9% increased damage to vulnerable enemies, and then you double that versus elite enemies. Come down here, we are using counterattack. So counterattack gives us extra dodge chance. It also automatically retaliates against close enemies for 80% damage when I dodge their attack. Not really why I take it, but you do get to activate this, so it is just a nice defensive cooldown. But the main reason I take this is counterattack passively increases your critical strike damage by 10% for every close enemy. So that's a bunch of damage to be added whenever you're running through dungeons and stuff like that. So then we have Scourge, which I already showed you guys. This just gives you, that's not right, here we go. So Scourge goes and gives us a 50% increased damage buff. If we can get it stacked up high enough, we'll see if we'll be able to. And then hitting an enemy affected by Scourge has up to a 50% chance to lifesteal 35% of the damage done. So kind of another survivability thing. Down here we have Potent. Hitting enemies increases how much damage they take from us up to 30%. Jaguar skills are also going to do 6% increased critical strike damage per stack of ferocity. I'm assuming this is going to work like Envenom for Druid since it's so low. Then we have Ravenous. Since we chose Centipede, we're going to get the 30% versus healthy enemies and 15% increased damage versus regular, and then 30% increased damage to crowd-controlled enemies and get 150% increased crowd-controlled durations. For the ultimate, we're going to be going the Hunter. The reason for this is we can bound across the battlefield with the Jaguar Spielet, dealing 50% damage upon landing and then rapidly slashing enemies. The cool thing about this is we get 4 stacks. It also gives us 100% increased damage to injured enemies, and then killing an enemy while the Hunter is present has a 15% chance to instantly reset its cooldown and cause your next cast within 8 seconds to repeat it 7 strikes in additional time, up to 4 times. So this is just kind of wild if you're killing things and like chain killing things. Alternatively, You could also go something like the Devour, which is pretty cool too. Spitting it up, so it just goes, shoots in a line, and then it kind of spits at people. Does a bunch of poison damage. And then it also has a cool effect. I mean, this one's mainly good if you're using poison, so that's another reason why I like the Hunter. But the cool thing about the Devourer is if you do, for whatever reason, get somebody full on their whole health bar with poison, it'll automatically just like execute it, which is really cool. Because that's actually a big problem with Druid right now with poison, is they don't have a way to like explode it. Alright, so now we have Resolution. So casting an ultimate skill grants 15% increased damage to leads for 9 seconds. Double this bonus if you're only fighting one enemy. Then we have Supremacy. So any enemies you kill while an ultimate skill is active grants a stack of Supremacy, each increasing your damage by 3% up to 30%. When an ultimate skill ends, you gain 15 stacks of Supremacy, but you begin to lose 1 stack every second. So that's pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. Just another 30% damage increase. And that's going to do it for the skills. Oh, sorry. Adaptive stances. So whenever we cast a skill, we're going to get this bonus. So since we're primarily going to be casting Jaguar, and it goes off the base spirit, we're going to have 30% increased attack speed and 30% increased damage. Once we swap back and forth. So we will be swapping just to keep up that damage buff, but yeah, just a lot of stuff here. Now you could go something like Vital Strike, since we do have things vulnerable. So you deal 100% increased damage to vulnerable enemies, but then it consumes it after you make the attack against the damage of vulnerable enemies. But so I mean, you could try that out if you wanted to, but I think Adaptive Stances is probably going to end up being the best. Yeah. But anyways, guys, that is the build. I hope you like it. That'll do it for this video. Like, subscribe to see more, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.